The rental rates in Vancouver are down, and there are many reasons why that's happening, but one of the biggest reasons is the lack of international students. And you might be saying, what are you talking about, Oleg? There are international students in Vancouver. Yes, there are, but not as many as what we've seen in the past. So earlier this year, Canadian government has introduced a cap on how many international students they will be accepting in Canadian universities for 2024. And that number was significantly lower than what we've seen in previous years in 2023, 2022, and 2021. And now in 2024, we are starting to feel the effects of lack of international students. Besides the cap on how many international students can enter Canada, there's some other restrictions that have been introduced recently. One of the big ones is the 24 hours per week that international students can work, so they can only work part-time, which is another big change. And just last week, there was an introduction of another international student cap for 2025. So it seems like the federal government is keen on keeping the number of international students low. So how does that affect the Vancouver real estate market and Canadian real estate market in general? Well, there's a very interesting article by Stories, and it talks about how the rents across Canada are at the 3-year low. And a lot of that is due to the lack of international students. This lack of international students affects the two cities in proportionally higher than others, Vancouver and Toronto, because there are a lot of international students that are coming to both Vancouver and Toronto. Since I am a Vancouver real estate agent, we'll talk about Vancouver specifically. So first of all, according to Rentals.ca, Vancouver has dropped significantly for the rental rate of one-bedroom apartments. Right now, one-bedroom apartment goes for $2,649, which is about 11% less than what we've seen in October 2023. That's a pretty significant drop. In my 10 years of being a real estate agent, I don't remember the last time the rents dropped by 10%. I guess the other time was COVID, but that's a whole different story. There's also about a 2.2% drop in month over month. So in September to October, the rental rates have dropped by about 2.2%. It is sort of a similar story in Burnaby. The rental rates drop is a little bit lower. It's 7.7% year over year and 0.3% month over month. The two-bedroom apartments are also not doing very well. 10.7% year over year drop in Vancouver and a 4% month over month drop in Vancouver as well. And as far as Burnaby goes, 10.5% drop in year over year rental rate for a two-bedroom apartment in Burnaby and a 1.8% rental rate drop for Burnaby for a two-bedroom apartment. And there's another interesting article from Globe and Mail that talks about the experience of property managers in university cities such as Toronto and Vancouver, and how right now they see a huge drop in interest for their rental apartments, especially near universities. There are a few other factors in play other than the cap of international students. There's also the fact that a lot of universities are expanding their housing programs, which is, in my opinion, a great thing. It makes it easier for a lot of students to live on campus and study at university. And I'm not just talking about international students, I'm also talking about Canadian students that just have to live on campus because they live too far away from university. That was another big part of the rental market. Just to sort of give you an idea, in the summer I had a listing close to Kitsilano, and usually it would have a lot of interest from families that have sort of students going to UBC in the fall. And I sold a bunch of these apartments in the past, and it was always a similar story. My kid has entered university, and now we're looking for an apartment for him or her to stay in. It's a bit of an investment instead of spending money on the rent. We'd rather pay the mortgage because they have the means to do so, of course. And later on, once the child graduates, 4 or 5 or 6 years down the road, we'll hopefully sell the apartment for profit or maybe rent it out. This summer, of course, the condo real estate market in general has been slow, but especially in this area, at least from my experience, and I didn't really get too many of these type of inquiries from parents who have children going to UBC because of a lack of international students, so lack of competition in the housing market. The rents are lower, and also more housing being built around UBC, which is of course a good thing. since the rental rates in Vancouver are dropping, that of course discourages a lot of landlords from entering the market. And of course, it makes it somewhat not as lucrative for a lot of other landlords who are looking to exit the market, especially if they have a tenant who has moved out. If they have a tenant who moved into the property last year, on average right now, the new tenant would be paying about 10% less in rent. And of course, the interest rates are still high, which affects a lot of landlords' cash flow. So that's one of the big reasons why we see the slowdown in the condo market. Lack of investors because there is lack of sort of international students interest in rentals of these apartments. I think the takeaway lesson from something like this is don't be too dependent with your investments on one segment of the rental market. As I mentioned, this condo close to Kitsilano, there are other interested parties in this condo, so we were able to sell because young families and first-time homebuyers are of course interested in apartments like that as well. However, if you do buy in a university town, let's say you buy a UBC condo with the hopes of renting it out to UBC students, well, that is a bit of a risky strategy. You are limiting yourself to only students, which means that if there is lack of students or if more housing becomes available to students, you are becoming very vulnerable to the market conditions. So my advice is try to find investments. If you are looking to become a landlord, try to find properties that would appeal to not just students or not just this one specific group of people, in this case students, but it could be sort of anyone. But try to find a location / the type of property that would appeal to a larger segment of the market. Those are much safer in terms of investments, at least from my experience. I appreciate you watching this video all the way until the end. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you stay up to date with all the real estate news and updates. And if you want to be even more updated, I have an absolutely free newsletter that comes out every month. The link to that would be in the description below. If you don't like it, you can unsubscribe at any point. It's not a sales pitch, just sort of gives you everything you need to know about what's going on in Vancouver real estate. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.